So good day, everyone, and welcome to the webinar Career Conversations, Where Are You Now? And we are focusing on mentoring for the purpose of career development or career planning with the mentees. In May, we looked at a framework for mentoring conversations. And you may remember that framework. It's really about a 4-phase process where we first invite mentees to reflect on their current reality. In other words, we explore their thoughts and feelings. And the question that we hold in our mind there, we're trying to find out, where are you now? What's your agenda? What's going on for you in life and in work? The second part of that conversation then is we're framing it around a question: where do you want to be? So we're trying to generate options and possibilities with our mentees so that they can make some informed decisions. We're trying to empower them, in fact, so that they've got some choices there. The third phase then is really helping them to decide on goals and action plans. And the question that helps us frame that conversation is, how might you get there? And then later on, a follow-up conversation where we help them follow through an adjustment to the actions they've taken. It's, how are you going now? And just a reminder, even though I've painted this picture of a 4-phase process that happens in a clockwise fashion, you can jump around from one section to the other. In a real conversation, it's not as orderly and systematic as that. So you're not locked in 1, 2, 3, 4. You can move around as circumstances require it and as appropriate for your mentee. And although I talk about the mentoring conversation or a mentoring conversation, in reality, it will be a number of conversations over a period of time. And what you'll see in this series of webinars is that we actually provide activities for our mentees to go away and do, and then bring back for a follow-up conversation. So this really will be a longer term relationship over a period of months, if not a year or more, where we are helping the mentee take their time to think through issues around their career and make informed decisions and plans, and then supporting them along the way. So today's webinar is taking you into this first phase of where are you now. The following 3 webinars this year will focus on those other questions. Where do you want to be? How might you get there? And how are you doing after they've taken some action? So really, it's about a deep dive and much more detail about where are you now. Essentially, in the early stages of this conversation, we really want to build the trust and rapport so that the mentee we can lead them through a process of self-assessment. So we are helping them to look at themselves really and get some information out. So we want them to take stock of where they are. We want them to look at what's satisfying in their career and what's not, what their priorities are, what their values, their interests, their preferences, and so forth. So in this webinar, we're going to take a look at some of the topics you may wish to discuss with your mentee. And I'll list those for you. And you may want to go and do your own research on these areas. You might have your own resources, but certainly in my book, The Mentor's Toolkit for Career Conversations, you will find lots of information as well as lots of activities. So today you get to sample some of those activities. I'll see how we go for time. I'm hoping we'll have time to talk through, if not do, some of the activities today, so you can get a sense of them, a feel for the sorts of things you can kind of give to your mentee as an assignment, take home, do it in their own time, come back. And that will open up a richness of conversation, a very empowering conversation that will allow them to do this real self-assessment for their career. And then I'm going to talk about how the mentee can use their self-assessment, all this content that they generate for themselves, all this data, this information, this self-awareness that they generate. What are the practical applications? What can they actually do with that? So that's kind of the scope of our webinar today. The aim of the first part of the mentoring conversation, what you're trying to achieve here by having these conversations, is firstly to explore their interests, their preferences, and their motivation when it comes to their career. What are their priorities? We want to know, what are their values? What are their principles? What are their life goals? We want to increase their self-awareness of those so they can make good decisions based on what's important to them. We want to help them recognize their strengths and talents. And of course, we talked about those in the last webinar, and their skills and their personal attributes that actually they can use in the work that they do and the career that's unfolding for them. As well as that, we can help them define areas for further development. So what are the skills, what are the attributes that they can work on to increase? What's the potential that they can tap into and improve? And we also want to help them think about, when they're planning their career moves, what are the practical aspects of their life that they have to take into consideration? What are the things that make an impact on the choices that they make about their career? Feel free, as soon as you've got questions, you can type them in. If you've got comments, observations you want to share, do that too. So in these exploratory type conversations that we have with our mentee, there are certain topics that are very useful for you to introduce to the conversation. The first of these is values. As I've said, we want to find out what's important to them. People are all different. No two people are going to have the same sort of hierarchy of values there, so we want to explore those. We're also going to talk, and I'll touch on these today, meaning and purpose at work. This is so important, and I'll show you why it's important and how it impacts on people's career choices. I'm going to talk to you about job satisfaction, again, why that's important, and we'll have activities in these areas as well that you can sample today and provide to your mentees to open up that conversation. We're just barely going to touch on strengths. I'll just barely mention it because we did have the whole webinar last time on talents and strengths. We want to talk about transferable skills because that is so empowering when people are thinking about making a change in their job or even a whole life career change. They need to know the assets they've got that they can carry with them from one occupation to another. And this gives them a lot of more power and a lot of more options. So I'm going to jump right in now and start to talk about values. What are they? So I'm guessing a lot of you already have done some work with values, but when I talk about values, what I mean is your personal values, your own ideals or standards, the things you regard as most important in life. They influence your decisions about life. For example, you might value freedom, and so you live a lifestyle that allows you not to become too tied down. On the other hand, you might really value stability, and you want security, and you build your life around stability and security. And no one can say that either one or the other is right. It's a value that to you or to someone else. It's not right or wrong. They're individual value judgments. And your values are developed over a lifetime. And some of them are very strongly held, and they're very slow to change. That's not to say you shouldn't examine them from time to time and see if they're serving you or holding you back, or look at where they came from. And if they're relevant, in your life today, but you do have a value system. And if you make decisions that contradict your personal values, you'll find yourself feeling quite discomforted until a realignment actually occurs. Either you change your behavior or you change your values to match the behavior. The psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. So my value is this, but I do that. So there's a gap there and I feel really uncomfortable. And I've got to close that gap one way or the other to feel comfortable again. Okay, values play a major part in job and career satisfaction, and the match between a person's values and the degree to which a role meets them can range from kind of, if you want to put a sliding scale on it, 0 to 100%. Career values provide criteria for making career decisions and evaluating job options. Values influence such issues as, where do you want to live and work? Do you want to live in the countryside? Do you want to live in a big city? Do you want to live close to work? Are you happy to commute? What kind of job is appealing to you? A lot of your values actually come from your personality, your inborn makeup, if you like. So different sorts of work appeals to different sorts of people. What kind of co-workers do you work best with? What kind of working conditions suit you? What level of responsibility do you feel comfortable handling? And what level of income do you need to attain for your chosen lifestyle? Now, if you're working through the Mentor's Toolkit for Career Conversations, you'll find there's chapters on these topics, and there are a whole range of resources. They're in the back of the book, but there's a link to download them, and you can print them and provide whichever ones you feel are appropriate to your mentee. They can go and do them as homework if you like, and then bring them back to you so that you can jointly discuss what they mean and how you can use them. So as well as the activities and the content of the book, there are actually a series of online videos, and there again, there's a link to those with a password for you and indeed your mentee to access those videos. You can watch them together separately, or you can just assign your mentee to watch them and come back and talk to you about them. So there's plenty of meat there for you to use in these all-important career conversations. Right now, we're going to do one of these activities called the Heroes Hall of Fame. So I'd like you to actually do this now, and you can type your responses into the chat if you want to share them, or at the very least, write down your responses for yourself, and you can go away and do some more work on this, as well as what we discuss here and now very quickly. So the purpose of this activity, this is one of them, all of the activities in the book come from workshops that I ran for many years, career development workshops. So I've taken all that material and provide it to you in this book. So the purpose of this activity is to identify values and personal attributes to which you aspire, or to which your mentee aspires. So what I want you to go ahead and do right now is the first of these points. I want you to think about, who are your heroes? Write a list. They can be real people or fictional characters, from movies or books. They could be characters from history. They could be well-known or relatively unknown. So someone you might know, but I wouldn't know. They can be living or no longer with us, and they can come from any walk of life. I've had participants in workshops name their mum or their dad, or a particular teacher at school, or someone they know in the community, or it could be someone famous, or it could be not a real person at all, but a fictional character. So you write a note. Okay, so we've got Captain America. Okay, who else is your hero? So the first part is to brainstorm, list some of these characters for yourself. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was a direct message, not to everyone. I apologize. Anyway, list your heroes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many as you can in just a few seconds. You can take this exercise away and do it more at your leisure later on, but just do it really quickly for now, so you get a feel for how this works. Now, when you've got a list, pick one and describe what it is you admire about that person. So what characteristics or what was it about that person that led you to choose them as your number one from this hero hall of fame? I mean, if we had enough time, we could all list lots of people. So pick one of yours and then note down the values or characteristics that are significant for you. So I'm going to use an example here, just while I'm waiting for some more examples to come from you. We have recently had an election, a change of government. We have a brand new Prime Minister here in Australia. His name is Anthony Albanese. And I admire him because, and he tells his history, his story. He came from very humble beginnings. He had a single mother household. They lived in public housing. They were quite poor relatively, but what this taught him, what this gives him is an affinity for people who do it tough, an affinity for people who come from these humble origins and are not necessarily wealthy or well off. And his mother highly valued education. She worked really hard all her life to make sure that he got a good education. And he worked hard. He valued the sacrifices his mother made for him, and he worked hard in his education. And now here he is, Prime Minister of Australia, and on his political agenda is looking after those that are in poorer circumstances. You know, he has a big agenda for people with disabilities. He values education. His government is going to provide more childcare for early learning. So he's got an agenda like that. So that is the sort of thing, that hard work, valuing education, looking after people who are less well off than you, things that I admire. So what have you got here? Okay, passionate and dedicated in serving people, able to do sacrifices for the good of everyone. Okay, so you get the feeling of this exercise. I encourage you to take it away and give it some time and think about this, because it will enable you to think, well, see, the point is, if I value those things about Anthony Albanese, that tells me about what do I value. Okay, so, and it's not hard to make the connections there. So by doing this yourself, you'll get a really good feel for the activity and what it means and how you can use it with your mentees. Love your feedback on this. If you would like to share some feedback, what you think of the activity or how you might use it, I'll ask you again at the end of the webinar, but it's really powerful for a conversation about not only what values are, but why they are important and how they impact on the choices that your mentee will make. Okay. All right. Thanks. Thanks for sharing. Okay. And as I said, you can choose to make your comments just to me, or you can make them visible to everyone in the room. Okay, so let's continue on. I want to talk next about meaning and purpose at work. And there is a fundamental human need to find meaning and purpose in our life. Without it, life seems worthless and work is boring and pointless. What makes work meaningful and gives a sense of purpose is different. Again, it comes back to values. So it's different for each of us. But there's Price Waterhouse research that says that 83% of employees rated meaning in day-to-day work as the most important factor of their job. People want to feel that their contribution has value. They want to make a difference, and to believe that what they do is important. So part of our job as a mentor is help our mentees see where is the meaning in their work? Where do they get that sense of purpose from? And when they do, they feel that work is intrinsically more valuable and rewarding. They're more engaged and motivated and productive and happy. So the sort of places that you can help them look to find that meaning and purpose in their work are these. Now, most organizations these days have a mission statement. And if the mentee can connect that to that, now it should be readily available to them. You can help them look for it and find it. I recommend, if you're not familiar with your own organization's mission statement, go look for it and read it and see how well you relate to it and how well what you do feeds into achieving that mission. People can always also find that sense of meaning and purpose from the products and services that their organization delivers. So what's it all about? What are we here to do? How does that help society, or what good does that do in the world? What difference does it make in the world? How can I relate to my work to that? And what's the fit of that? Now, that's all well and good, but it needs to be reinforced by the culture of the organization, the environment, the leadership, the way the organization operates, the atmosphere around employees. People can find meaning and purpose from their own occupation. You know yourself, small talk often starts with, oh, what do you do? And if people are really proud of their occupation or their job, they can speak about, or a profession, they can speak about that, and they feel that that has meaning and value and purpose, and they get a sense of satisfaction from that, and they can be more engaged with their work. Now, as I said, most organizations have a mission statement because it kind of tells them where they're heading, and it's meant to tell employees where they're heading as well, gives a sense of directions. A lot of families, in fact, I've worked with families to develop mission statements that include the whole family. And individuals can have their own mission statement. And I think that's a useful thing, a useful project to encourage your mentee to develop their own mission statement. It gives them a sense of direction. Now, it does have a flip side as well. You may have seen this. If people are really invested, if part of who they are is their work, then if they should lose their job, they're out of work, or even for some people when they retire, they lose that sense of identity. They lose that sense of purpose and meaning in their life, and it can have very negative repercussions. So this kind of goes beyond work, really. If people can have a sense of worth, a sense of meaning, a mission, a purpose in life, not just work, that will serve them very well. And I'm going to share some ideas around mission statements with you, and some ideas about how you, and indeed your mentee, might develop a personal mission, a kind of mission statement. And there's more in the book, obviously. Walt Disney, founder of the Disney Empire, his original purpose, stated purpose with Disney, was to make people happy. It's a very simple, almost a slogan. If you look at the Disney Corporation, their mission statement is much longer, a bit more dense. I'm sure they educate their employees and staff into, this is the mission of our organization. But something like that is kind of hard to carry around every day and have in the front of your mind. Yes, it's more comprehensive, and no matter what you might think of the Disney conglomerate, this is their stated purpose and their mission in that corporation. So entertainment, information, inspiration, storytelling, creativity, innovative technologies. So on and so forth. I've worked with a number of organisations on their mission statements. And I worked with a couple that really came more back down to this simple style that Disney started out with to make people happy. So they simplified it to almost a slogan that their people could keep in the front of their minds and could easily relate to, and therefore give meaning and purpose to their day-to-day activities. So here are some examples. So IPEC is a major road transport company in Australia. They had a 3-word slogan, which is really important: people, service, profit. And even the order of the words is important. Now, I don't know how many of you are here in Australia with me, but we've got an energy crisis here at the moment. And just recently, it's winter time here, and it's a very cold. We've had a very cold snap in the beginning of winter. And I've been turning my heaters and air conditioning and everything on a lot more than I'm happy with. But nevertheless, I do have solar, so that's a help. But there's a major crisis, and we were at risk of blackout. So having no electricity to turn the heaters or even the lights and cooking things on recently. And the reason for that, it's long and complicated, but what it boils down to in very simple terms is some companies putting profit before people. And so this particular company, the IPAC Road Transportation, has nothing to do with electricity, obviously, but their slogan is important. It sends a message: people and service before profits. Not saying profit's not important. If you don't make a profit, you don't stay in business. But they're giving the message clearly to their people and to the people they serve. This is what we're on about. Another transport company, a different sort of an award-winning small load transport called Mini Movers, turned their mission into 4 really short statements and put them on stickers and literally put them on telephones, in their trucks, on their notice board, in their lunchroom, everywhere, posters and stickers and what have you. And it was be careful. So be careful with people's possessions. These are small moves, so household moves. These are people's precious possessions that you're moving. So be careful, and be careful with yourself. Think about the way you lift heavy things. Think about looking after your hands, not dropping things on hands, looking after your back, your safety procedures in the trucks and on the stairs and all those sorts. So be careful. Be quick. It's a mini move. We don't want it to take days and days. We need to do it in a few hours and get it done. So be quick. Exceed expectations. Good customer service is what it's all about. And along the way, make it enjoyable for the customer and enjoy yourself. So a really quick and easy way of keeping a mission front of mind. Now, one more example, not an organisation, but a person. And I heard about this in a podcast I listened to recently. And it was an interview with Ash Barty's mindset coach. For those of you who don't know, Ash Barty is a world champion tennis player, Australian tennis player, young woman. She's everybody's darling in Australia, young woman, beautiful sports person, icon, role model, and she's just retired from tennis. However, her mindset coach, who we can safely say helped her to achieve the great heights of being a world champion, #1 in the world, in fact, and his name is Ben Crow, and he's a mindset coach for other athletes and sports people as well. And he shared, and he didn't share Ash Barty's 3-word mission: because he didn't, that was private, but he shared that of another top tennis player who had publicly spoken about it. And it's Roger Federer, who's a champion tennis player. And his 3 words were humility, gratitude, and humor. And Ben Crow pointed out, this has got nothing to do with tennis and everything to do with the man. This man, Roger Federer, came up with these 3 words to sum up what he stands for, what gives his life meaning and purpose. What does he value? So I challenge you now, and I think we've just got a little bit of time, so you might be able to come up with this right now. If not, you're going to take it away as homework. What are your 3 words that sum up your meaning and purpose, your mission, if you like, in life, personally or professionally? So there you go. I'm not sure if we have really time. If you've got a word you want to share, a word or 2. If not, write this down as one of your action steps and really think about it over the next few days and come up with 3 words that sum it up for you. And then keep these in the front of your mind. I'll share mine with you. I actually came up with 4, and it's fun. Well, it's got to be fun. If you're not having fun, what's the point of sticking around? Creativity, income's still important to me, and contribution. Now, if you want to analyze that, you can probably link some of that back to my previous values that came out in the earlier exercise. And if you come up with 3 words, you'll be able to link that back to your values from that earlier exercise when you do that. So now, I've taken a bit of time with this. Why? Because it's important. And I suggest, this is just one part of how you come up with a personal mission statement, but you do it for yourself so you understand why it's important and how to do it, but help your mentee then to come up with their personal mission statement. A version of this can be on their resumes. They can use it when they go to interviews, when they talk about themselves and why they should have this particular role they're going for. They can talk about what's meaningful for them in life and work, what their purpose in life is, how that relates. So any questions or comments? I'm just having a look to see what's here. Okay, I'll continue on then. Okay, so I'm going to talk now about job satisfaction. And it's more and more important to consider job satisfaction and to be able to talk about job satisfaction with your mentee to help them decide whether to stay in a role or whether to go for another role in the same organisation or whether to go, elsewhere and look for satisfaction if they're not getting it where they are. So finding out what does and does not satisfy you and your mentee is vital to making good career decisions. Now, of course, pay and benefits are important to everyone, but they're far from the only thing that is important when we're considering this whole area of job satisfaction. Most people cite opportunities for career advancement as something that attracts them to an organisation or gives them dissatisfaction with their current organisation or satisfaction. Another one is recognition of job performance. Do they get that recognition for what they do? Is there pay for performance or is there other forms of feedback and recognition? Can they trust senior management in the organisation? Now, one of the really important determinants of both performance, satisfaction, and employee engagement is the relationship they have with their immediate supervisor. Now, as a mentor, you need to be careful of that area and careful of your stance when you're discussing their immediate supervisor. However, you can have confidentiality, they can have confidence in you. It's not going to go any further. You don't take sides, but you can be a sounding board for them in terms of how satisfied they are with the trust. Can they trust their immediate supervisor? Does their supervisor give them recognition and feedback? Does their supervisor or their leader or their manager assist them in their career development and opportunities for career advancement? So you can certainly talk to them about that and what they can do about that. The intrinsic value of the work itself can be very satisfying or not. And job security, it's more important to some than to others. How mobile is your mentee? How many options do they have? How do they know, how secure they are and what their options are? So they are really key elements. But what we know is people are more satisfied and more productive when work is aligned with their interests and their preferences. So the more self-assessment they do, the more they're likely to be satisfied and productive. So this whole self-assessment area, this whole taking stock of what's important to them, is a fabulous opportunity to enable people to be more satisfied and productive, whether that's in the work they're doing now or making career choices for the future. And challenge is something that's very important to people as well. There's sort of a Goldilocks balance that people need in their level of challenge. If there's too much challenge, people get too stressed. Now, a certain amount of stress is an important factor of life, but there's got to be a balance there. If there's too much stress, we become overwhelmed. We can become sick. Our mental health and our physical health can suffer. So in terms of work, too much challenge can be too much stress. But on the other hand, too little can lead to boredom, which can be just as bad for us. So if we're talking about job satisfaction, we've got to find the right balance there between when it comes to challenge. Now, some elements of job satisfaction are out of an employee's control, such as how well leadership communicates with employees, but some they can influence themselves. And you can help them in lots of ways. You can help them become proactive in seeking career development, both within the organisation, by talking to their leaders, their leader or their manager, and indeed by being independent. I mean, there's nothing to stop any of us pursuing our own career development. Even if our managers and our organisation won't support that, we can go and do courses. We can go and investigate. We can take on volunteer roles that build us as a person and build our skills. Being the treasurer of a local club, getting actively involved in coaching a sports team or playing in a sports team for that matter, volunteering as a surf lifesaver or whatever it happens to be, builds our skills and can be used on our resumes to demonstrate abilities that might not be being used in a particular job. You can encourage them to upskill. None of us can afford to stand still these days. We continually need to develop our expertise and our skills and our knowledge. So you can encourage them and help them figure out ways that they can do that. You can encourage them to seek feedback on their performance and on their opportunities. You can encourage them to look at the elements of satisfaction in the role they're in and the culture and the leadership style of the organisation they're in, or to examine whether they can get that in the organisation they're in and whether they may need to move to a different organisation to get that satisfaction that they need. And if they do, you can help them figure out the questions. You know, when you go for an interview and the interviewers are asking a lot of questions, there's almost always a time towards the end of the interview where they say, and what questions do you have for us? So you want to help your mentee prepare a list of questions that they can ask to ascertain, are they going to get the satisfaction from this particular organisation and this particular role and this particular work? So any questions or comments on anything so far? I'm going to keep moving along. And now I'm sure you're aware in the last, 2-3 years of COVID, where people have been working from home, that suits some people, it doesn't suit other people. Some of us are moving back to more traditional workplaces. And some of us are reevaluating our priorities. So you want to assist your mentee in looking at that reevaluation and helping them to think about what's important to them now. Maybe it was less important before, but it's more important now. Now they've had a taste for working from home. A lot of people want to continue at least part of the time to work from home. And the most common model is a hybrid model where people are doing a couple of days, 2 or 3 days in the office and or 2 or 3 days from home. So you need to help them work out what's possible for them and what they prefer. Again, lots of resources in the book. And once again, we're going to do one of these activities, or at least look at one of these activities now, called three-dimensional or 3D analysis. So three-dimensional analysis comes from the work of Paul Stevens of Work Life. I had the privilege of working with Paul many years ago and training as a career counsellor with Paul Stevens of Work Life. And his model went like this. There are 3 dimensions, 3 elements, 3 areas where you can be satisfied or dissatisfied in terms of your career. The first one is the nature of the work. That is the tasks, the duties, the actual things that you are responsible for in that role. And they can be satisfying to you or not. On a scale of 0 to 100, what percentage of that satisfies you? But it's not the only thing. It's not the only factor. There's also the employment environment, and that can be everything from the physical environment. I mean, do you have an ergonomic chair to sit in? Can have an impact on your work and your satisfaction. Do you work best in an air-conditioned office? Do you work best at home where you're not suffering a lot of interruptions? Are you an outdoor person? So lots of physical aspects of the work, but also the culture, the leadership style. How are you managed? What's the vibe of the place, if you like? What's the atmosphere there? What does that mean to you in terms of satisfaction or dissatisfaction? And then the thing that surrounds this, the third dimension, if you like, is your quality of life, your lifestyle preference. Where do you want to work? How do you want to work? Are you okay with a long commute, or you don't want to do that travel on the train or the bus or the car? So all of those things impact on your satisfaction of your career. And this is what we call the 3D analysis. Now, I have put in the chat box, if you want to scroll back, I'll put it in there again now for you. There is a handout to explain this 3D or 3-dimensional analysis. It's just going up for you now. So you can download that if you want to do it. I might get you to take that as homework also. But basically what it does is it invites you to think about those 3 dimensions for yourself and rate on a scale of 1 to 10. So 0 is low, 10 would be high. The degree to which you are satisfied with the nature of your work. Now, if you're like most people, there are parts of your work you love and parts of your work you don't love, but you still have to, as a responsible employee, get done. As long as there's enough of the good stuff, then the stuff you're less interested in, you just get it done. It's like vegetables and ice cream. Your mum used to say, eat your vegetables, then you can have dessert. So that's the way that can work. And as long as there's enough of the good stuff, you're fine. Same with the employment environment. How would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? How is that for you? And everyone's different. Does it work for you? Do you enjoy it? Is it supporting you? Is it bringing out your best, or is it inhibiting your performance at work? And then your quality of your life, your lifestyle, how you really want to live your life. Is that helped or hindered by your job and your working arrangements? And although you can do this as a simple rating scale, the richness of this, the value of this comes out when you have the conversation with the mentee about what that means to them and how it could be different and what are the options for them in choosing something that would make them happier, more satisfied. And again, the questions they need to ask to find out if a different role in the same organisation or a different role in a different organisation or the same role in a different organisation is likely to bring them more satisfaction. Which of these boxes will it tick? Okay, any questions? I'm not seeing any. Please feel free if you've got questions. Now, I'm not going to talk about talents and strengths because we did the whole webinar on that last time. And I apologise, I'm having trouble uploading my recordings at the moment. I'm trying to sort that out. Once I've got a solution, I'll let you know in the next newsletter. But you do need to have conversations with your mentees about what are talents and strengths, how to recognise talents, and how to turn those talents into strengths. So how they can tap their inborn potential and get more options in the work that they do. So I'm going to move on now to transferable skills. So again, this is a good topic of conversation. Your mentee is unlikely to know the full extent of their transferable skills. Perhaps you don't know the full extent of your transferable skills. So transferable skills are those that are useful in many different roles. Illustrated with a suitcase there, you can pack them up in a suitcase and take them off somewhere else. Open the suitcase and there you've got your skills to get out, dust off and use in something different. I've spoken to a lot of teachers who say, oh, but I'm a teacher. I can't do anything else. But when you unpack that, you will find a wealth of skills that a teacher has that can be transferred into different occupations if they're not getting the satisfaction from teaching. A colleague of mine built her whole mentoring practice around military personnel transitioning out of the military into civilian life and recognizing the wealth of skills that they had that they could be transferred into other occupations and how valued they were as employee with a great skill set and personal attributes that they carried with them. Someone who served their country in the military, that says a lot about the person that they are. So transferable skills, portable skills, might be technical skills such as coding or data analysis. You can use technical skills in a range of different areas. So I want you to use your imagination and get really across this idea of even things that seem quite specific may be portable, transferable. all of your human skills, such as teamwork, communication, all of your mental skills like problem solving, decision making, project management has a wealth of transfer. It's a whole project management is a whole field that's transferable into different areas. I was told repeatedly by an engineer friend of mine that engineers are the most difficult, not the most difficult, the most expensive profession to train, because they have so many skills. They seldom stay as engineers unless they have a real love for building stuff. It's their mind and their mindset and the abilities that they have that are transferable into, CEO or, operations manager or a myriad of other occupations. So really dig into this transferable skill set, learn more about that. And as I said, personal attributes. Employers are looking for adaptability, resilience, and a whole wealth of other skills. You'll find online, if you search for what are recruiters, what are the top 10 things that recruiters are looking for in 2022, and you'll find it's a whole bunch of things that are to do with your personal attributes as much as anything else. So go have a look at that. All right, just looking to see any someone's telling me they're an engineer. I've just given you a really great rap, so that's good. Pleased about that. All right, so of course what we want to do is look at, let me go back, look at what can your mentee, or you for that matter, if you want to do this for yourself, and I do recommend doing this stuff for yourself. It helps you be a better mentor, even if you're not planning a career change. Do this self-awareness activities and do the self-assessment to give you more power, give you more options in your life and in your career. What does it give you? Well, it gives you a basis on which to make your decisions about your future. So when people are weighing up, do I take this job? Do I take that job? Do I go in this career direction or do I go in that career direction? If you've done a thorough self-assessment, you know your values, you know your priorities, you know your interests and your preferences, you know your skills and your capabilities and your strengths and your talents. Well, if you make decisions that take all those into account, they're going to be better decisions. And that's what we want. We want informed decision making. It gives your mentee data to be used in their portfolio and resume. I imagine most people know what a resume is. I'm going to talk about a career portfolio and what that is very shortly. So this information can be collated and used in really practical ways. It may be the first time they've documented this information. It's very, very useful. The other thing it does is give the mentee a foundation for a professional development plan. As I said before, you want to encourage them to take control and to be proactive about their career development and their personal professional development. So by looking at what their strengths and talents and skills and so forth are, they're also going to identify along the way some things that are potential but not actual right now. And this is an opportunity for them to develop. So whether they're going to stay where they are, whether they're looking for a career change, but just not right now, they've got to survey the market and do some research on that, or maybe they want to do a complete career change, which we'll talk about in a later webinar. And so they're going to upskill in certain areas. So you can help them develop that professional development plan and support them while they do that. And the other thing that comes out of this often is perhaps some new potential career goals that they can go and research what's possible for them, a new direction or something they hadn't thought of before. But once they start to take accountable of this, they think, that might be possible for me. And you can help them go look for that. But in the meantime, they're doing their development. Okay, so I said this might be the first time they've documented all of this. They've now got a lot of data, so they put it together, either in a career portfolio or, as I said, in identifying those areas for development. So I'm going to talk about the career portfolio. What is a career portfolio? I'm wondering if this is new or familiar to any of you. You can let me know. So a career portfolio, it might be a cardboard box, it might be a ring binder, or more likely these days, it's going to be a folder on a computer with lots of files in it. What's in it? Their career goals. You help them articulate and document those. A list of their competencies. What are they capable of? What can they show that they're competent? A list of their achievements. What have they done in work and or in life? Their resume and or curriculum vitae. These are two different things. I'll talk more about these in a future webinar. But a resume, you do a new resume for each job application. You tailor it for a particular role. Any certificates, diplomas, degrees, awards, job descriptions, their current job description and previous role descriptions, if they've got copies of their performance appraisals that are favourable. Any references or letters of recommendation or compliments, a record of their training, development and education. So all those records, documents, samples of their work, if that doesn't contravene confidentiality, a list of their previous supervisors or managers, and referees with their current contact details, and make sure they are current. So that's what goes in a career portfolio, as well as any other relevant documentation. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the content. We're just coming up to time here. What we've talked about in this webinar was the topics you want to talk about with your mentee. We talked about values, meaning and purpose at work, job satisfaction, strengths, and transferable skills. These are 5 big topics. I want you to go out and research them so that you are au fait and you feel comfortable and confident, or you can obviously buy the book and there's that content there as well. We've done some of the self-assessment. We did the heroes, or we looked at the Heroes Hall of Fame, the 3-word mission, you've got homework, and the 3-dimensional analysis, the handouts there for you to take and do as homework, and also to provide to your mentees. And we talked about finally how they can use this self-assessment as decision-making criteria for their future career choices, data in their career portfolio, and then eventually into resume, possibly as part of a professional development plan to upskill, develop more competencies, and perhaps even generating some new career goals that they will investigate. So I'm here for your questions or your comments. I'm very interested to know your key takeaways and actions that you might take as a result. You can type those in to share with me or with everyone. Just a reminder, our next webinar is on the 29th of July. Now, my webinars are usually at 10 o'clock, and I made an error. I apologise. I ran this webinar at 10 o'clock for a few people, and one of them pointed out the error I'd made and that it was scheduled online for 12. So I ran it again a second time. Hopefully it's even better second time around. But normally 10 a.m. Sydney time, whatever time that normally is for you. You will be receiving some information about the book that has both the content, the activity, and access to an online video training course that you can share with your mentees. There's a password and a link to access that. So I'm back for your questions, your comments right now. And I'm going to stop the recording now. So if you're watching the recording, thanks for watching. Love you to subscribe to our newsletter, and then you will receive invitations to future webinars. So thank you for watching. I'm just stopping the recording, and then I'm going to pause for your questions. So stick around if you're live.